Welcome. What's up, Africa? A lot has happened. A lot is happening this week, and we are ready, able, and willing to discuss all that. This is Afro Politico. Hey guys, welcome to the conversation. This is two guys at our local here at Jay's Bar in Westlands.
Thank you.
Right, and this week we're going to talk about Jacob Zuma. We promised you in our last episode that we'd want to talk about Jacob Zuma.
Yes.
We also want to talk about a little matter in Nigeria. Very, very pressing for the president.
Yeah, rodents.
I'm James Smart.
I'm Marvin Tumbo.
Let's start from the top. And this is a fight that has been going on forever and ever and ever. This contest between Julius Malema and Jacob Zuma. I was almost going to say Jacob Juma. Jacob Zuma, the president of South Africa. And this is what happened this week. This week, Malema stood and in his question time, I believe, the version of question time, to the president and asked why hasn't the president, in fact, taken time to go and sue people or take action, that is his words, people who have said a few things about him. And the president stood up to answer the question and said, you know what? I don't respond to people like you. And all hell broke loose.
Yeah. Malema is a very smart politician. He's a street smart politician, in essence. He was Juma's, goodness.
Zuma's.
He was Zuma's. See,
I know.
I can't even. he was Zuma's spanner boy.
Yeah.
For the longest time until they fell out, and I think again he knows. I'm surprised it's lasted this long.
Yeah.
But also that tells you at what level of politics is playing at, because being the president and given what stands between this last term he has in office and the next term is a possible jail term. Yeah.
You think he's just survived, was it less than 3 weeks ago, he survived an impeachment motion and his ANC party, to be honest, looks like it will go down with him. That's what it looks like.
And that's the thing, because right now, the reason he's surviving these impeachments is, one, very key. He is managing interests. He is managing interests within his party, yeah, which means at the end of the day, I think, because I have the presidential powers, yeah, we can be able to negotiate a certain deals in terms of support. Because this happens. That's what happens. It's trade. Yeah.
Because the thing about, I think the relationship I find that is very difficult to take and to understand is how does someone like Jacob Zuma and those interests that he manages and how he manages to keep it afloat, while the same ANC just a few years ago asked Thabo Mbeki to step down. All right, they actually asked him to step down so that Jacob Zuma can come in. So the question then is this: that at what point do you break, and what are these interests? Are they personal, deep interests, or country interests?
Of course, they're not country interests. Yeah, because look at Mbeki is a different kind of politician. Yeah, first of all, he's an intellectual.
Right.
He's not your spanner boy. He's not the guy. He's not a guy in the street.
Right.
Yeah. Mbeki is a different type of politician. So there are certain games he was not going to play. He was not willing to play. Actually, I don't even think it's about willingness. He was not even able to play.
He didn't understand how to do this.
He did not understand how to play those kind of games.
Right.
So right now you find a politician who came up the ranks, yeah, through the gutter. Yeah. He knows how to play this game. That's how he's rose. Yeah. He dances. Mbeki cannot even lift his leg.
Is Zuma, in essence, then, is he in the overall politics, and coming from the history of both NC and what they've come about from the history of Mandela, and them becoming the party essentially that sort of encapsulated what the dreams and the visions of the people are, the majority, right?
Yeah.
And then they hold this space in South African politics, a huge political space that is, I think all the other parties have been sort of unable to shake the grounds they stand on. So you have this person who's risen to the top of the whole thing, and what he represents in between is a bit something that most South Africans, I think, in my view, do not even understand why they have him at the top. Because South Africa is one of the countries in this continent which, obviously, we're going to talk about top 5 countries, we'll have South Africa, all right? In terms of just GDP, in terms of growth, economy, business, anything that you want to talk about. South Africa is one of the top countries in this continent. So anything that happens there, they have to sort of provide precedence, if you like, for the rest of the continent. And Zuma doesn't look like it. He doesn't look like the guy who you want to be at the top of the things of an important country like South Africa. Or I'm just hating.
No, you're not. But also, what you're forgetting or not saying is politics is local. Yeah, it is local, and that's what the best politicians understand best. How do I cater to local interests? And those interests can be local in terms of an entire constituency, but also the constituency itself can be individual members of parliament. Yeah, in that I cater to your personal interest in a way that protects both of us.
Right.
So that's the game he's playing that Mbeki was not able to do. And him is be able to manage these interests to ensure that. And again, go back historically, and it's across all political jurisdictions. Yeah, the best politicians are the ones who have been numbers guys who can count votes on issues that are going to arise. They just need the majority, and they say, where am I going to get it from? Where is smart?
The problem of that is this, right? Marshalling people is a good thing.
Yep.
And I think in history we all forget this thing that Hitler was elected by the people in majority.
He
all right?
was.
He was a numbers person.
Yes.
And what we know with history is this, that the majority are not always right. Okay? That we know. Okay?
Yep.
That the decision that majority has made, at the end of the day, we respect it. But the majorities in many, many instances, and we can prove it through history, they've actually not been the ones in the right. So the fact that you just have the might of the people and the people have decided doesn't make you right.
I'm not saying he is the right president.
All right.
Yeah.
So which brings us to the question of Malema then. All right. That he plays the very same game that Zuma and the ANC are playing, but in his own very small party. And what he's deciding to do is to be an irritating annoyance, irrelevance in the whole parliament. All right. Because he just makes a lot of noise.
Malema is a mini me of Zuma. Yeah. Malema, the only reason he's a thorn is because he's playing the same game as Zuma has played for a long time. Yeah, so he knows how to get under your skin, because the DA is not even on the table on this.
Yeah.
And yes, the DA is the opposition. It's the official
opposition.
Yeah. The DA tried, and when they got a black my money, when they got a black
MP.
Leader,
Yeah.
the assumption was a huge chunk of the opposition, or a huge chunk of South Africans would actually now feel that the DA speaks for them, which is what ANC has been to them. Yeah, but that hasn't happened yet. It might, because my money is a young guy. I think he's only 34, 35 at the moment.
Right.
So there's that chance. But Malema stands a better position to actually use the same tactics as Zuma uses to actually be able to. But I think Zuma is going to survive at this time. His issue at this point is avoid impeachment. Yeah,
which he has successfully.
Which he has so far successfully. Right. But also what he's trying to do is manage the forthcoming elections to ensure that whoever succeeds him, yeah, whoever succeeds him is friendly, is lenient, and he's hoping his wife will do.
Oh yes. The former AU,
The former AU.
yes, chair.
Yeah.
So as we wrap the South African question, and I think I have a lot of South African friends, and I see every time they talk about this despondency and the disconnect between what the young people of South Africa, the young, energetic, educated, buzzing and bustling young people who have a lot of ideas, in a country that essentially should be able to. All right, that's the Malema effect. All right, that these young people are finding themselves in a yes, the spoiled votes, in a fit whereby it's almost impossible for them, to change or to have their dreams being accommodated in their own country. All right, so you have this situation whereby there's disillusionment in the country. And you can say this about many African countries, all right, that the dreams and ambitions of young people, the 18s to the 35 or even 40, who would say, you know what, we feel that our governments are just not up to task and up to par, all right? We're feeling this disconnect. We just don't have governments that are responding to our needs. We just don't have governments which understand the digital world. We have governments which are unable to turn, our potential into something.
I'm not sure whether I agree completely, because the reason I feel passionately about Kenya and the Kenyan elections is that there's I'm reading a book on Kissinger, his biography. And there's a gentleman there, a philosopher called William James from Harvard, and he was saying that truth is a process.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not an event.
Yeah.
Actually, you're saying truth happens to an idea. Yeah. It becomes true, is made true by events. Yeah. In fact, truth itself is an event. Yeah. Now, when you look at how now these translate to politics, the kind of voting that will start and will continue across the continent will be reflecting, these seismic shifts in terms of these small events. Because one, you're looking at younger leaders occupying political posts on the continent. Yeah, you're looking at the AU becoming less of the old guard, either through attrition, death, through impeachment, hopefully, through many other factors. But what happens is, as we become more, because their democracy, as it matures more and more, you find that these voices have to be heard, and the people who speak to these groups, have to structure their thoughts. So the truth is happening slowly, because even in his first term, you could not imagine a position where someone is impeaching Zuma, but now it's become a weekly event.
Right. I think I'm going to take your point, and I think what I'm trying to process is that you have a young continent. Africa is the young continent. Most of the mean age, if you look at the map, is 19 years, 17 years, 18 years, and that sort of thing. All right. And I had this argument once with an economist, and I hold the view that we are young in the sense that, we die young. All right. That by the time people get to 50, they really are so done.
Okay.
All right. So the quality of life speaks to the quality of life. All right. The Europe, the Americas or whatever it is, they're sort of middle age or old because they manage the second process of life past 50 is, yes, it's very well managed. But the economy is saying no. It's the fact that we are just we've taken care of our the issues that killed us or killed Africans between year 1 to year 5. So then now we are able to at least now take the second set of it. So I take those views. The problem that I have with our politics is that it doesn't seem to have changed enough to accommodate where we all are, which is today, this young generation that lives today is not the Africa of the past. The Africa of the past expected the BBC to give us all the news at 6 p.m. This Africa today is on phone, it's connected. It says, you know what? We know how America looks like. All of us don't have to go to America. Okay? We will put our own apps inside here and we will going to figure out and define our own destiny right here, right now. Our politics has not moved to that stage. Our politics still is of managing our energy. Okay, that's where we generally are. I take the point before you rebut the point. I agree that there are moves and actions to sort of try and accommodate this new Africa of young people who are on the move and on the go and necessarily don't want employment, because that's another characteristic of this young continent, that they don't want to get employed into government or parastatals or whatever. They want to be in business. They want to, cater for their own needs and that sort of thing. But there hasn't been a great move where the continent is moving towards changing its politics to reflect the majority of voters.
Okay, we can argue about the politics, but also have you considered the kind of, and which is saying there are certain events that are happening, yeah? So there is an idea, and I was saying truth happens to an idea. And
Right.
what is the idea? The idea at the moment is connecting Africa, yeah? And these connections are not happening just in the air. They are happening on the ground in terms of infrastructure. When you look at what's happening in Lapset and connecting us to Ethiopia, when you look at what's happening with the SGR and connecting us to Rwanda,
Right.
when you go to Western Africa, when you go to these Central African countries, when you go to Gabon and all these countries, what you find is now infrastructure that's being developed there is not just individual, as in terms of countries. They are talking about regions. And when you have countries working together to develop infrastructure, it means from South Africa to Egypt, yeah, you are looking at a single line of infrastructure. And laws, and here's the thing, when you read, there's a book by Francis, by Fukuyama, yeah, it's called Political Order and Political Decay. He said, institutions are conservative by nature, yeah? Politics is an institution in itself. So at the end of the day, it's always the last one, yeah? It's always the last one to change. But when you have all these changes that are happening, yeah, these small events, and they are joining up and becoming larger events,
Right.
you find that now over time, politics has no choice but to change to reflect the new truth, the new reality of the day.
And the new truth and the new reality of the day in Nigeria, where we have to move next, is that the president, who's been away for 3 months in the UK receiving treatment, for I think close to 4 months, if I'm not wrong, finally came back, and one of his biggest announcements then is unable to work from his office because guess what? The rats had moved in.
Yeah.
And they had occupied his office, and the rodents had destroyed so many things. So it needed some time, yeah, before the whole thing can be made up. That's an excuse that the president of a country, as a powerful country as Nigeria, can give to the world, and it's taken, and we move with it. Again, our politics has not changed, but here we are.
Okay, it is it's also an opportunity for enterprising people.
Yes.
As I saw an image a friend shared, an entrepreneur had written the rodents had been able to chase the president out of office. And actually, I'm supporting him at the moment. Rodents have chased the president out of the Nigerian office. So there's a young enterprising young man who has offered fumigation.
So that they don't chase you from your own home.
If rodents have chased the president out of his office, make sure they don't chase you out of your home.
What's happening in Nigeria, to be honest? Buhari was popularly elected after kicking out Goodluck Jonathan, and then he was, he's for you to kick out a sitting president is a huge feat. We have to take that, and he had to mobilize, the entire of Nigeria to get, himself get elected. And obviously there's health problems and that sort of thing. But the analysis of Buhari in office, 3-4 years later, Has he delivered the promise?
And Buhari has been horrid.
Why do you say that?
I have many friends in Nigeria, and quite a number who supported him. And I think
Are they disillusioned by him?
No, they were actually following. He took a minute to set up the cabinet.
Yeah.
And that cabinet did not speak to the change he promised. Yeah.
Right.
It did not speak to it at all.
What is it? Is it the composition of the cabinet, or
Just the composition, the kind of people who
they didn't look reformist enough?
they did not what do you call it? They are not vision carriers, given the vision he had.
Right.
He had. They are not the people who you could trust to carry that vision.
All right.
Yeah. Because they had been there. Yeah. And Buhari himself, to be honest, I always have a problem when you have older politicians.
No,
I'll tell you why.
I have to disagree with you on that.
No, have I given you a reason?
But,
Can I explain?
The topic is wrong, but anyway, move on. But I'm going to
I'm
disagree
not
with
going to
you.
move on. I want,
Okay, stay on your point then.
I want to stay on my point and explain.
Yes.
It, yeah. My biggest issue, yeah, when
With
you
older
have
politicians.
older politicians. First of all, this is not the first time you have a sick president in Nigeria. Yeah.
Right.
The other one died in office,
Right.
leading up to Goodluck Jonathan
Right.
being elected.
Right.
Yeah. So you have another president who's sick to an extent where he's away for months on end. He comes back and he has to work from home. Yeah. Because of rodents. Yeah. Now, that is one. And look, even yeah, the point you made earlier about us not managing the second half of the second half of our elderly.
You cannot use my arguments against me, by the way. This is just not how this show
It's
runs.
fair game. It's like
This is not how this show runs. This
that's
show-
how the Supreme Court runs. That's a big issue, to be honest. Yeah. So that's one. Then number two, when you talk about the shifts that are happening.
Yeah.
Right now, the countries that are being led by younger politicians
Right.
are actually better able to speak to problems that are facing young people, the majority in this country.
Marvin, that's a
I'll
fallacy.
explain.
That's
no,
a
it's
fallacy.
not. No, it might sound like sophistry, but the issue is this. Yeah. Someone like Buhari, yeah, at the moment, you have Jonathan, who are done so well.
Jonathan failed.
Well enough.
He failed.
No, he didn't.
Let's not create history. He failed. Well, that's why he was kicked out of office. He failed. He had massive corruption allegations. He was young, yes. Massive corruption allegation. He failed.
Can you compare his failure to the failure of Buhari?
No, I mean, that's another thing. The Buhari question is the fact that he's unable to translate his vision into actual things.
And are we quantifying failure now?
We can if we must. But let me make this point. There's some truth or some you can go with it, on the blind that yes, young possibly leaders have enough energy to run, through the process of politics and government, because the idea of being president it's a very costly affair. All right.
Tough.
So there's an argument
You
there.
aged twice.
Yes, I mean, you can see Obama's pictures.
Yes.
When he was elected with all black hair, then by the time he was leaving,
And you wonder why Buhari is sick.
he was all grey. It's a tough job. So I take that point. But here's the thing: I don't think that being young in itself is a quality of leadership. All right.
It's not the only quality.
I think it's not even in fact a quality.
Okay,
It's not. We cannot say that the fact that you're young, then you're supposed to be a political leader, supposed to be a leader. It's not.
No.
That there's something that brings into politics. All right. Over and above.
Why, for instance, we have a 33-year-old governor in Kenya. Yeah, you have Nandi. Yeah, you have a 28-year-old senator in Nandi as well. You have Sakaja, who's 32 in
Listen,
Nairobi. Let me just make the argument for you. Yeah, when look at the current crop, look at the president today. yeah, and the deputy president. They entered politics at what ages? They entered politics in their 20s, in their early 30s. The president ran, last time I think he ran was what?
1998, 97
No,
elections.
2002.
No, but he first.
No,
won
I'm saying, yeah,
97.
2002.
Yeah.
How old was he?
Right.
Yeah. He was, I think, 42
Yeah.
when he was running for president. Now, when you have leaders who start engaging in this process at young ages, yeah, what it means is that it gives them, first of all, because they understand the people around them. They understand the young people. They understand the spaces. They start understanding that to change the country, yeah, you need to be involved in its politics. Yeah, that's a fundamental issue. So you start young, you enter this process. Within 10, 20 years, you'll be able to run at presidential levels. But this is a learning curve, and a very, very good learning curve for you to understand, okay, given this where I've come from, these are the lessons I've learned along the way. Once I'm president, what am I going to do? But let's say you've not been president, yeah? Let's say you've run and you've not been president. You are 70, you are 80, yeah?
You bring a lot of experience on how not to do it. A lot of experience. Marvin, I've no problem with people running when they're young and people getting into political leadership when they're young. That I have no problem with. The problem I have with that we cannot translate that to be a quality of leadership in itself. That I have a problem with that. That the fact that you're saying that you're young, then that is a fantastic quality of leadership.
No, I would say not fantastic, but desirable, in my books.
I'll give you that. All right, we got to go on and on for this forever. All right. So the problem that I think Buhari, in my view, is having is one, the inability in his wisdom, and he's been president before, he's been engaged in politics before, and in fact he got
not president before.
He was president before.
He was
Yes.
during the 80s.
Yes,
Oh
he was
goodness.
president before, so he was doing it for the second term, right? The fact that he brought into this, he brought, because every election says something. He captured the mood and ambitions of Nigerians who are tired of corruption and tired of systems not working, tired of a government that is not working. So Buhari came with this idea that I'll fix it. I'll fix it because I'm more experienced, but most importantly, I'll bring a huge, experience from everyone else who's going to, help me do this. And he was unable to translate that into real government and real things to work. We have our own evidence here, all right? When we elected Mwai Kibaki in 2002, the whole country ran behind him. And in 5 years, he had, or 4 years, or 3 years, whatever it is before they started fighting, they had a good time of thinking about projects. That's when you had Professor Anyang Nyong was, all these good projects that we are talking about today were conceptualized then, all right? Including the SGR, Thika Road, and all these things. Because he brought in a broad church, okay, of different expertise, different political experiences, all right? And they sat down and they were able to come up with that Vision 2030 that we talk about today. That was 28 years far off. Okay, they were not able to be in office. They knew they were not going to be in office when these projects would be, materialized. So we need political wisdom. That is one. But we cannot use age as a political, quality. All right? We can have young leaders who are very passionate about where they come from, and we give them opportunity to serve. But we cannot put that as a standard. Say, just elect young people across the board everywhere. I think that's a poor standard. I think if we go that way, we'll really, really mess up. That is my view.
I'll say, I think we need to start younger. I think we need to have, I'll stick to my guns. I've seen age has its fair share of problems. Because experience has weight, and that weight makes you sleep in conferences. Yeah, it makes you. I've seen too many of these guys in high-level meetings falling asleep and whatnot. They can't help it. Yeah, they might want, but they don't have the energy.
The spirit is willing, but the body is not.
The body is not. It's done for.
Right.
Yeah? So I advocate for young leaders, but also again, I'll say to your point again, it's not young for the sake of young. I'll say it's desirable. Yeah, if you are able to instill these qualities in young leaders, if you are able to elect them young, so that they are able to learn the the Cubs. They can be able to know the rules of the game early enough to an extent where they can make the leap and be leaders while they're still young. So that's one. Number two, on the case of Buhari, and this speaks to a lot of also African leaders, this issue of not wanting to lose. Yeah? Even when your health is at stake. Resigning is not, it's an option. If you cannot rule a country for 6 months because you're sick, surely, what stops you from saying, look, because of health reasons, I am unable. You have a deputy who can take over. You have rules, you have laws, you have institutions which can operate, which can transition you out of the system. Yeah, that's how you become a statesman. But this thing of
Hang on to power.
hanging on at all costs. Yeah, we had a governor who died here in office, having spent years.
Out. That transitions and segues very nicely to the next point, which is why African leaders always go and die or go and seek treatment abroad. All right? And we have many experience. I mean, our own vice president died in London, and the governor died in London. And Buhari is just coming from, hospital in London. Mugabe goes to, hospitals in Abu Dhabi or wherever it is. Zuma, so we have all this experience. I mean, those who are young have their women to go and give birth in Europe and whatever it is. Why do we do that? Honestly, isn't that just the biggest evidence you need of just how our politics doesn't work? Okay, that we cannot, people in charge of making sure that we have hospitals and develop our own hospital to the standards whereby when they get sick, when their relatives get sick, when they need to use that facility, they can confidently shepherd them there. They don't do that.
I can speak on what the country has had, and this is a borrowed statement. For Kenya, you've had what you call a delayed development agenda. Yeah? And a delayed development agenda means there are things which should have been done 10, 20, 30 years ago that are only being done now. When you talk about SGR, it's not even the Kibaki government that conceptualized it. These ideas were on the books from 10, 20, 30 years ago. When you look at dams, there are dams which have been on the books since before independence.
Right.
When you look at our laws, yeah, our Companies Act was a pre-independence Companies Act. Our laws have not kept up to all of the modern demands and whatnot. And again, that is problematic in many ways because it has created this situation where you need to do so much more now than you needed to do if you had done them at the right time when you should have done them. Yeah? So now, an array of African countries, yeah, for you just to say, I'm going to invest in health, it's going to cost you 3, 4, 5 times compared if you had invested it 10 years ago. Because
shouldn't we do it anyway?
No, we should. And which is why, for me, I support the SGR. I support Thika Road. You see, Thika Road, there's an analysis which I read. Thika Road, there are people who are arguing against it. Yeah? But 7 years later, someone did an analysis and said, if you are going to build it, if you are to build Thika Road now compared to when you built it, it would have cost you this much more because of appreciation in land prices, because of changes in the economy, because of inflation, because of 1, 2, 3, 4 things. So I think more and more, which is why if you go across Africa, and I've had the benefit to be in Congo and dealing with guys across the region. I've had the benefit to be in Botswana and dealing with guys here. Yeah, when you see a lot of this development, even Ethiopia is doing an SGR. You have Tanzania doing its own version. You have the LAPSET project. You have all of these things. What these things are trying to do is just to make us catch up to what we should have done. And I think it's going to take time, but the reason is that it's much more costlier to do it now, but I cannot argue that it's not being done.
You've taken a philosophical way to answer my question, which is a very basic and a very simple question. Why do our African leaders, when they get sick, travel to the UK?
Because you seek the best. We don't have
US?
the best yet.
So what gives them the right to be the ones who get the best, and the rest of us have to be confined with, a lack of a better word, the useless facilities that you're stuck with here?
I'll say
What gives them the right?
in Kenya, you've seen a change. You've seen increasing changes. Now you have referral hospitals in each county.
Marvin, still, we have to be very faithful to facts, right? That most Kenyans, in the last 2-3 years, we've taken costly, a huge number of people to India, all right?
For cancer.
All right, to go and do, several procedures, all right? We've done it. And our National Health Insurance Fund actually helps us to do it. Takes funds away from us, so that money that we could have built for in groups, because of insurance, all right? If we just take, assume on average, in a year, we just took 100 people to India, all right? The procedure there doesn't cost less than $1 million times 100. That is money that we could put on a facility. But we take them.
My problem with your argument, is that you think a cancer hospital is like a balloon house that you just blow into.
No,
you see,
here's the thing. We need to build it. We need to build, and it starts from somewhere, like you said. We are delaying it.
Even at the moment, like at KNH, there's a cancer ward which is being built.
I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen it. The problem is this, that where we are today, okay, it doesn't give us the confidence that what our government is doing, right? Or what we're getting the best value the money can buy right here, right now. That is my question. All right. I'm not saying that we're not doing it, okay? Mm-hmm. We're doing things, okay? But that value of the best of the best
what would
here,
you have done different?
So many things, all right?
Tell me.
So many things.
No, in terms of cancer hospitals.
That's one of the things I've said. One, why do people, part of the problem of cancer, for instance, is this, that it takes so much time before we can identify it, okay? So because that facility is just not here. By the time we do the test and whatnot, you have to take it to South Africa. You have to fly to India. By the time they tell you, oh, this problem you've been dealing with for the last 5 years is actually cancer.
But now you have radiology equipments across 47 countries.
No, that's what I'm saying. Now the problem is that now we have to, the first thing is make sure that we start identifying those things right here, right now. Okay, that is the first step. The second step is this. Why is all these procedures taking a long time for us to do it? We need to have those expertise trained here. Okay, just last year, was it this year, we had problems of paying our doctors, all right? It took 100 days before we could resolve it, yeah?
But devolved function.
I knew you'd run there. He's found a good way to get out of this discussion.
It's a constitutional issue.
Yes, it's a constitutional issue, we cannot discuss it. But as we wrap this up, the point is that Africa has to do a bit better for its children.
I can't say, okay, I think my final statement on that is that I'll argue there are places where I'm happy with the movement. I'm happy that there are some changes, and at the moment, and for me, what excites me is when someone says, look, Tanzania is doing this and we are not doing it. Look, Ethiopia has done this and we are not doing it. Which means we are comparing ourselves at an elevated standard. Yeah? And that for me is always good, because it means we're saying, look, we must be doing better, because these guys are doing better. But those guys we are comparing ourselves now are not London. They are not the UK. They are not Germany or whatever. Right. They are actually other countries on the continent. So it is a better, we are better argument.
Yes. Final thing, 2 minutes or less. This Texas in Houston, there have been, floods, and we've been bombarded from international media of Pastor Joel Osteen not allowing, people to come to his huge, is it 6,000 sitting facility, and why that's a problem, and it's, everyone in the continent can tell you blow by blow the problems in Houston, Texas. All right. We have our very own, where hundreds of people have been killed just in neighborhood in Sierra Leone. All right. Nigeria has flood problems. The Kenya's meteorological department has, I think, mentioned that in November or thereabouts, we're going to have torrential rains, El Nino kind of rains. All right? Problem is this. that Africa doesn't tell its story very well. Why is the problem in the U.S. of Houston, which is a legitimate question of the storm, a bigger story than ours in Sierra Leone, who actually died? Why is that a bigger story?
Because there's a very crude way of looking at it. There's a comedian I love. It's called Patrice O'Neill, and he said, this is a perfect example, because it's the same argument that happens in the U.S. He was giving an example, and he said, look, there's a certain young white lady. He said, actually, he was arguing. He was saying the value. He saw a very pretty white lady sitting in the theater when he was performing, and he was telling that lady, you are a top shelf white lady. Yeah. And then he goes and looks at a black girl and tells her, and asks her, do you know how you can tell how valuable you are?
Right.
How long they'll take to look for you if you are lost at sea. And he gives an example. He says, there's a lady, a young girl who was lost at sea when she was sailing. And these guys spent $500,000 to look for her for days and whatnot. And there were reports and there were media guys.
Right.
And he says, when an entire team of black athletes was also lost at sea, they sent someone at the beach to look for the guy for 8 minutes.
Yeah, like we couldn't find it.
The problem is how media, because who owns this media at an international level? What kind of, because all of us watch BBC, we watch CNN and whatnot locally.
Why can't we tell our own stories, Marvin? Why can't we? We are a place whereby this content can tell its own story. Why can't we tell our own story?
Because we don't care enough about our own people.
All right. And that's a very good way to end, because I think it's important we all know, the world has been told how Africans can die. What kills Africans? Diseases, poverty, coups, and whatever, civil wars.
We don't value our lives
the world doesn't
as much as we should.
The world doesn't know how Africa lives.
Yeah.
And that's why Africa Politico exists. It's a good way to end.
Wonderful.
I'm James Watt.
Marvin Tumbo.